All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
I'm delighted that you are here. It is a ramp up to the 4th of July, and there really are no other people that I would rather spend time watching the Republic unravel with than you all. Yes. It is the wonderment of crazy that has really overtaken our great nation. And as we document some of that crazy, we examine some of that crazy, as we lay bare the crazy, as we analyze the crazy, we are here with you to do it. And I do have a major announcement that will come in just a few seconds. Albert is here. Albert, thank you. You have tweeted and blue skied and done all the stuff on social. You are you have, sir? Thank you. I have to tell you that when Albert's not here, Kim is a hard no on doing any social posting. So I have to do it all myself. Yeah. Tony doesn't do it. And to be honest, I hate it. So it's great. Albert, you don't realize, but your mere presence here buoys me, because it's one less thing that I hate that I have to do. Because life is full of things that you hate to do, right? Every day brings things that you hate to do. Like I have to clean up every day. I wake up, I clean up the pee and the poop that has come overnight, because I have older cats, and my pal Charlie, who's much older, he has issues. So I do that every day. I hate it, but I know I'm going to have to do it, right? And that's just part of it. Then I be with ants, so we have to moat all the cat food, so that the ants don't get in. That's something that I hate doing, but I do it. I take out the trash. That's something that I hate doing, but I do it. All right. So these are like just the daily hateful things that you have to deal with. Maybe you have to drive the carpool. Maybe you have to deal with some government agency called a cable company because of these are things that you loathe, but you know that there is no one else to do them. And so it is with Albert here today. Doing the social posts is a great relief, because I hate it. It's an obligation, and yet I know it's important. And so, Albert, as was once said by a great American, Albert, thank you. Albert, thank you. Yes. All right. So I do have.
I almost felt bad for you there. Almost.
Yeah. Well, you know something, Kim. There is a major announcement, Kim. There is a major announcement, and I'm going to give it to you now.
Yeah.
There will be no Mark Thompson show tomorrow or on Friday.
What?
I know.
Horrible. What happened?
We decided to give everyone on the show a break.
Yeah.
Kim needs a break. You could probably see from her work that she needs a break. Am I right?
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying.
That kind. Are you being your kindest self? Are you?
She's dogging it.
Don't talk
Are
to me
you?
that way.
I'm saying that.
I don't think that you're being your kindest self, and I think we have to have a talk
That's
about
real.
it.
I'm saying, Kim. I think you can use a break. So I'm getting you the 4-day weekend to take this break, and then we will return on Monday, refreshed, ready to go, and bringing it home for the rest of the summer. Are you good with that, Kim? Is that going to work for you?
I like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I blame you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. But I do want to mention this. It is likely that we'll drop a video. I think we do have a video that we could drop for tomorrow, don't we, Kim? I think we have a conversation that I could drop for tomorrow. I'm not sure.
We have a bunch. We have a really good one, as a matter of fact.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we have Dr. Samantha Sweeney talking about how to raise a child in this world that is diverse, but that is rife with issues and problems. And I think that's a really good one to release.
That is a great one. We'll run that tomorrow. So there'll be fresh content on this channel tomorrow, but just not this live show. We do a live show.
Kim, how are you?
We do a live show every day, Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 on the East Coast. Shout out to the East Coast. And the West Coast as well. Shout out to the West Coast. Another classic Mark Thompson time waster is what Ricky O'Bear is saying. You know, I resent that, especially from an OG.
This is a classic Mark Thompson time waster.
He's an OG, you know, Ricky. When he lashes out, it's very...
It hurts hurtful.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel... I'm more fragile than people realize, Kim, you know, but on the outside, I bring a magic and virtuosity to everything I do.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, but
I'm kind of a big deal.
But I'm just saying that on the inside, there is a fragility that I'd like people to be a little more respectful of. Anyway, that's the big announcement. And today is a great day because we have John Rothmann coming up, bottom of the hour. We'll talk about a lot of what's happening, particularly with regard to the bill that passed the Senate, the bill that was shoehorned with additional monies for billionaire tax cuts, the bloated bill that will balloon the deficit even further, that will throw millions, tens of millions it may be. I guess I've seen everything from 12 million to 16 million off of Medicaid. I want to talk to Rothmann about that. I want to talk to Rothmann about speaking of bloated, the immense lift that DHS is going to get under this new budget, under the budget that just passed with this bill in the Senate. I mean, you're growing what is the biggest government organization in Washington now, DHS, because it envelops everything. You're growing it even more. And where is that money going? It's going to detention camps. It's going to enforcement. ICE is getting a major infusion of money. So I want to talk to Rothmann about all of these things.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Okay, well, I'll move along. That's the thing I was going to mention is David Katz is in hour 2. So, yeah, that's right. Don't bury it. Because Katz can give you a few minutes on what's happening in the Sean Combs trial. For those who have sort of that interest in the pop culture, wild nature of that trial. And Katz can also give us, obviously, an idea of what's happening in the many sharp corners that involve the legal system as one of the great legal analysts in all the English-speaking world. He'll be here in hour 2. Hey, Kamish, did you see what happened in the Arizona Diamondbacks San Francisco Giants game? You are a Giants fan. I would think maybe you'd be aware of this.
I saw a lot. I didn't see the Giants score any runs, but I did see that there's a fan in the outfield who he's a serial home run stealer, actually. So
this is exactly it.
He stole another home run, and he did it again last game. So he has been banned from games just from the season.
With the Giants down 3-2 in the 8th inning, this is Monday. The fan reached over the left center field wall to catch a fly ball right as Diamondbacks outfielder Tim Tawa arrived to make the play. The umpires initially ruled it an out, on fan interference, but the Giants challenged that it was overturned to a double on replay. Arizona went on to win that game 4-2, but as a commissioner has noted, multiple offenses have led to the banning of this fan for the remainder of the Arizona Diamondback season. Again, it was at a Giants game, but it was just one of the many times that he's interfered on the field of play. And so
he's done it to the Giants before as well. So it was kind of like a deja vu moment. So and also the Giants has been struggling to score runs. So this has been extremely more frustrating that this guy stole what could have been a run that we're even struggling to get. So
it's an egregious thing, Kamish. I know you hate to see, you like fan involvement, but I know as a purist in this world of sport, you hate to see that. Also,
I mean, just as a Diamondbacks fan, you should let your player try to get the catch. Because,
yeah, right, exactly.
But in some way, it's kind of like the whole Yankees World Series, like in '96 with the Derek Jeter home run. I think it went from a home run to a double, so I guess it did help the team. So,
yeah, there it is. Thank you for showing the still. Those who are on the YouTube platform, you can see it. That guy who's leaning over, he won't be at any more Diamondback games for the balance of the season. So, I have a lot to get to, so let me get to it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There'll be more on this with David Katz, but I did want to mention that this is a remarkable and yet consistent feature of American life now. A major media company caving to a powerful president who doesn't think twice about using that power on academic institutions, on legal institutions, on media institutions. This is the dominance that the Trump administration has. They're not playing around. And so a nuisance suit that would have been thrown out of court that preceded this suit, the one with ABC could have won that suit, but they decided, hey, just give the guy the $15 million and let's be on with it. And that's what they did. In this case, Paramount, owning CBS, agreeing to pay Trump $16 million. The settlement is a lawsuit that was filed against 60 Minutes on behalf of the president, widely seen as a dubious lawsuit. He was arguing that in an interview with Kamala Harris for 60 Minutes in the ramp up to the election, that 60 Minutes had somehow edited the interview to manipulate what actually happened to make it more favorable to her. They agree to pay $16 million. This again is something that when it comes to press freedom, when it comes to media independence, when it comes to the independence of the free press, just overall, you can see it's leaving the building if it hasn't left the building already.
Well, and now we know that they're going to be suing CNN. Boom. This is the why you don't bend over for somebody like Trump, who brings a bogus lawsuit. We all know that it's ridiculous, especially if you work in the media. You know exactly what they were doing and that they do it all the time. And it's so ridiculous. And then you turn around and you see Trump now emboldened and threatening to prosecute CNN because they reported the ICE tracking app. So he doesn't like that they're publicizing the fact that you can track ICE in your community. This is a community like citizen app where you can report if you've seen ICE in your community, then other people are alerted. And Trump doesn't want this. So he's going to sue CNN over this. Well, he just got a settlement from CBS, so why not?
That's one aspect of it, and it's an important one. As Kim says, in a sense, you've enabled a legal blowtorch to now redirect to other media outlets. The other thing it does is that there is a quid pro quo here, right? I mean, why did they settle? It had to do with approval for a merger. Paramount wants a merger. And the reason they were concerned and the reason they wanted to settle, I mean, it's implied, but I think it's pretty obvious, is they didn't want an argument with an administration they need to get approval from. I mean, the president literally has to approve this merger of Skydance Media and Paramount. So in order to get that approval, they are thinking, hey, let's just settle with this guy so that we don't have any outstanding business with this president that might affect our merger desires. So that's the other side of it. So that, you can see there's a freedom of the press and freedom of media aspect to this. Harassment from the federal government, from Donald Trump, who holds the power of the federal government, even as he launches a lawsuit on a personal level. Now, the lawsuit against CNN that Kim's talking about, that would be done by the federal government. But anyway, we're going to get into all of this with David Katz, but that's the latest on, again, as I say, a major media company folding to a powerful president.
Now, the money, the $16 million, apparently won't go into Trump's pocket. It'll go toward his presidential library fund in Florida. along with the other monies he's collected from lawsuits and from, donors to build this library. I think they should put it right next to Alligator Alcatraz, right in the Everglades. Just dump it right there.
You think that's where the library should be built?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
just build, with and keep the tents up from Alligator Alcatraz as a legacy. It can be his legacy.
Well, you mentioned Alligator Alcatraz. I'll just get to it. I mean, it's a rude, awful thing that they've attached this kind of cute name to what is a concentration camp that's set up in the Everglades under incredibly harsh conditions. And you may say, well, Mark, these are illegals who have perpetrated crimes. I mean, I've heard the president, I've heard Stephen Miller talk about the fact that they're the worst of the worst, the most heinous of the heinous. They're not. Okay, let's just get it out there. The statistics on who these people are and who's actually involved in any kind of crime independent of being here illegally, 92% of those picked up have no criminal record or criminal history whatsoever. 8% of them. All right? 8 out of, what does that mean, Kim? That means that 2, I'm not good with the math. Help me. Every 10 prisoners, right?
Yeah.
Every 10 prisoners, 9 of them would be people who have no history of criminal activity whatsoever.
Right. I'm sure that the Trump folks, the MAGA folks, would argue, well, they're here illegally. That would make them breaking the law. That would make them criminals. But the fact is that even people that have requested asylum and are going to their normal court dates and are playing by the rules and are here when the government knows they're here and are going to their appointments with immigration and with the immigration judges, they're being scooped up. So they haven't even broken any laws. They haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah. This is the point, that you've criminalized something that was legal. It was a legal means of asking for asylum. So, look, I think that the immigration issue in America has been perverted, and obviously it's of great concern. The southern border issue was really the thing that propelled, in large measure, a kind of political support to Trump that, alongside inflation, won him the presidency. It was a great thing to run on. It's been a great thing for both parties to exploit for political purposes. But now you're going to build a cruel policy around it. You know it's a fraud. You know that picking up people at Home Depot who are day workers, you know that picking up maids and sanitation workers and kitchen workers and those who work in the food industry, you know that these are not people who should be in a Alligator Alcatraz. These are people who are your friends. You know them. They've worked in places that you frequent, businesses that you patronize. And now you want them to suffer under these conditions, as Stephen Miller calls them, the worst of the worst, the most heinous of the heinous. It's really wrong. And so the celebration yesterday of this place, Alligator Alcatraz in the Florida Everglades, there were photo ops. Trump was blithering on. He didn't seem to know at the end of that what he was saying, where he was kind of just musing like an old guy might muse about the time he spends in Florida and all the rest. I mean, this is a mosquito-infested area 50 miles west of Miami, surrounded by all these reptiles, and I guess that's some sexy medieval picture that they have of what they want for a place where people are incarcerated. But these people are awaiting deportation, and it seems despicably cruel. Not to mention, these are temporary residents. I mean, as these tents are erected, they could be blown out easily by hurricanes, and, I'm sure if that happens, there'll be no tears shed, and there'll also be some contractor who has a deal with Trump and this administration to rebuild and to clean up. Since FEMA is being eliminated, it'll be all inside baseball payoffs. That's what's, I think, again, a bit of the loathsome stuff that's happening there with immigration, as I say, and how immigration has been hijacked and turned into this thing. And it just, there's an othering of people, you know. That's why I mention all the time the food workers, the person selling fruit on the corner, the person who is cleaning your house, watching your kid. These aren't statistics. These are real people. And they've come here and they're working earnestly in the main. That's why I share the statistics with you. It's outrageous. So to treat them in this way, to sort of match the intense rhetoric of Stephen Miller, the worst of the worst, it's just, it's wrong. It's really wrong on many levels. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I do want to quickly mention the bill that has been dragged across the finish line in the Senate. As you know, Lisa Murkowsky was the big holdout. There was actually an interesting bit of video on that, Albert. You have the video of Murkowsky getting confronted in the hallway and asked about her vote that really did, I mean, it was a critical vote. It was the thing that brought it over the finish line. And here's Murkowsky being questioned about that vote.
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my.
That's what Senator Paul said.
She's staring down the reporter right now. That's
Senator, we've got the.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw the direction that this is going, you can either say, I don't like it, not try to help my state, or you can roll up your sleeves.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that is a great piece of video for the last part of what she said, because the last part of what she said was the truthful part of what she said. She basically said, I didn't like this, and I voted for it because it helped my constituents. They threw my constituents a bone, which is exactly what they did. But I'm struck by her social media post. She wrote, this is one of the hardest votes I've ever taken. This is long, so I'll just kind of read a couple of chunks with it. This is one of the hardest votes I've taken during my time in the Senate. My goal throughout the reconciliation process has been to make a bad bill better for Alaska. And in many ways, we have done that. In addition to extending pro-growth tax cuts, a larger child tax credit, she did get gifts to Alaska to get her vote. And she kind of runs through what some of them are.
There's a harpoon tax, right?
Yes, there's a gift to whaling,
yeah,
to whaling captains.
If you're going to spear something in the sea with a harpoon, you can now deduct the cost of the harpoon from your business expense.
To address the bill's shortcomings, we have helped our communities through a $50 billion rural health fund, she says. This will mean hundreds of millions of dollars for Alaska hospitals, community health centers, and other providers. In the SNAP program, we have added tribal exemptions for work requirements. In other words, the work requirements that are going to apply to the rest of the country for SNAP, we've talked about it before, you're going to have to show need. And there are two things about that. First of all, it's going to be more difficult to show need, and there's a lot of paperwork. It's designed to shake people out of the SNAP system. But anyway, in her point, we've added tribal exemptions for work requirements. So you don't have to worry about that if you're in the tribe there in Alaska. We've delayed cost share penalties to help Alaska get benefits to the people who need them and included work requirement waivers that align with our Medicaid policies. And then she said this. And to me, again, this is what it's all about at the end, just as when she was speaking with that reporter, she got to the truth at the end. But let's not kid ourselves, she said. This has been an awful process, a frantic rush to meet an artificial deadline that has tested every limit of this institution. It is an artificial deadline. Why the rush? They're always rushing these tax cuts through. Do you remember what happened with Trump season 1? They rushed that tax bill through. It was a huge tax cut, and literally the ink wasn't dry on the page. No one had read it. But she continues. While we have worked to improve the present bill for Alaska, it is not good enough for the rest of our nation, and we all know it. This is Lisa Murkowsky, who voted for it. My sincere hope, she goes on, is that this is not the final product. This bill needs more work across chambers and is not ready for the president's desk. We need to work together to get this right. That is embarrassing from a U.S. senator who says that the bill isn't good. It's not good enough to even vote for, but then she precedes that conclusion by talking about all the giveaways that have been given to her constituents in Alaska. Now, you can say, well, she has to take care of her constituents in Alaska. But yeah, not at the expense of the rest of the country. If the bill is bad, if the bill is rotten to the core, which it is, you should vote against it. But this is the same U.S. Senator, Lisa Murkowsky, who talked about the literal threat she felt to her person and her family. She talked about the fact that now in Washington, the hyperpartisanship is so intense, it is now fueled by threats of violence. And so lawmakers like Lisa Murkowsky, who was the one who dragged it across the finish line, Lisa Murkowsky has to vote yes. Because the specter of violence, of harassment, of MAGA Nation going after her is so intense that she doesn't want to stand up to it. So she's saying, I've pushed it over to the House. Hopefully they can make it a bill that's more palatable. It's embarrassing. It's awful, but it's a sign of the times. That is authoritarian creep. But that's the situation in Washington.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And by the way, they're trying to slow the bill down in the House. Albert, run a little bit of this is what's happening, and then I'll bring on Rothmann. But, a lot is said about the Democrats not doing anything. Now they, at least on the floor of the House, on the Senate, they made them read the bill. They're outgunned. They're outnumbered. But on the House of the floor of the House, they're doing the following. Go ahead, Albert. Run it, please.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make in order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
So
Once
they're
again,
asking for...
The chair understands that the gentlelady from North Carolina will not yield for the purpose. Therefore, the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained.
So the unanimous consent request means that we're just going to enter it into the bill. We're not going to have a debate on it. It's just going to be entered in. It's obviously not going to happen. But there is a whole lineup of Democratic representatives who are all going to be doing the same thing. If Albert runs more of it, you'll just see one right after the other, and they'll be doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, so, more than 100 of them.
I yield to the gentleman from Minnesota, Ms. Omar, for the purpose of a unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady from Minnesota is recognized.
This is
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make in order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and snap.
See, so it'll be one after the
Like
other.
North Carolina
And so
has expressed.
it slows the process. And so you may say, well, what are they doing? I mean, there's no chance of these things happening. Well, it's all part of a legitimate parliamentary move that does slow the process. So when you say Democrats aren't doing anything, I mean, this is the kind of thing you can do. And honestly, it's the kind of thing that Republicans are very good at doing as well. You remember when Tommy Tuberville, he stopped all of those promotions, military promotions that were teed up for Joe Biden. And it was 18 months of that. It was over monies paid for abortions on military bases, et cetera. So the situation grinds on in Washington. We'll see, and we'll get from Rothmann some handicapping of what the chances are of that happening or not. By the way, on the Murkowsky thing, I thought there was one great comment from a Democratic representative, congressman, saying that Lisa Murkowsky, because she got all these handouts to, some of these things that Kim was talking about in Alaska, that was the way to get her vote on this bill. Yeah. Lisa Murkowsky is a cheap date for voting for President Trump's giant tax and spending package. It's a tax break for fishermen. That's it. But as Kim mentioned, the harpoon deduction, it speaks to the absurdity of the, early Christmas gifts given to Murkowsky to try to get her support. And as a congressman pointed out, she is a cheap date. That is a bit of an overview. I do want to get to a piece of video about Scott Bessent, if I can do it, but I'm going to bring Rothmann on so that we stay on time. Don't you think, Albert, Kim?
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay. Do me a favor before I do that, everyone. Please smash the like button. I know everybody says that who does shows like this.
With your iron rod.
The reason it's important is that YouTube looks at how many thumbs up there are, how many likes there are. I know it's crazy, but then they determine where the show might also have interest in addition to wherever it is now. So like there are a lot of people who don't even know who we are or what we are or that we're here. So your thumbs up helps that way, and it costs you nothing.
With your iron rod.
And do subscribe, share the show, share segments from the show. That helps us grow our footprint as well. So thanks for being here, and Rothmann next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's our colleague from KGO radio days. He is a scholar, an American presidential historian, and a lecturer. How about it for the great John Rothmann? Give me some thoughts on this bill as it sits in the House, and also maybe if you could give me a thought or two on whether you feel it'll get across the finish line ultimately to the president's desk.
I spoke with friends in Washington just a few minutes ago, and their answer was clear. This bill will pass. It will pass because the Republicans are adamant that they must do it. I don't know whether it'll be today or tomorrow, but evidently we are told, accurately or not, that it appears that it will be on the president's desk on July 4th or before.
That was the date that he wanted it. He wanted it by July 4th. So you really see here, I think, the complete capture of the party by a GOP strongman. You're the presidential historian. You tell me who in presidential history has had the kind of complete control of a party that Donald Trump has now?
None. And I would go even further. Those of you who listen to my podcast know I took a lot of heat the other day for saying that Donald Trump is using his power more effectively than any president in modern history. And in fact, when the history books are written, the first period of his second term will be equated with the first 100 days of Franklin Roosevelt. That is to say that he has achieved most of his agenda, either by presidential fiat or by dominance in foreign policy, or whether it is intimidating Republicans. You played Lisa Murkowski's piece. What can you say? What a sellout. It's just so sad that she admits after voting for the bill that it's a terrible bill. But let me explain to you and to our listeners, because I took a lot of heat today in the last few days from listeners to my podcast, as I said, who were very critical of me for saying anything positive about Donald Trump. I do not agree with any of Donald Trump's policies on these issues. I think what he is doing in Florida with the collaboration of Ron DeSantis is criminal. But I want to be clear that on a purely subjective level, when it comes to the exercise of presidential power, not since Franklin Roosevelt have we seen someone as effective. I said that for a second time, not to be redundant, but to underline it. And I think it's very important to understand it.
You mean purely on an objective level, not subjective level?
Well, I'm being objective, but I'm also being subjective.
Yes, I think you've got both objectives. You're double objectived, I think, in that situation.
So is that double jeopardy?
It is. You use more adjectives than anybody else who comes onto the show. I'll say that.
Yeah, I say I'm delighted.
But back to the point. This man is wielding power effectively, is your point. More effectively than any other chief executive. But let's say this, John.
In recent years.
Well, I asked you in the history of the presidency. What do you mean in recent years?
Well, let me say, that's why I used the term of Franklin Roosevelt. Because Franklin Roosevelt's first 100 days, which I alluded to a few moments ago, were equally historic. There's a difference. The 100 days of Franklin Roosevelt was done in collaboration with the Democratic leadership, but also with a Congress that was willing to go along. And he had huge majorities. Donald Trump is doing this by the skin of his teeth. Vice President J.D. Vance had to come in and break a tie in the Senate. So it was 50-50, and Vance's vote made it apparent by one vote. I tell you, it is beyond distressing. But let me make one other quick point, and then I know you have other questions. This decision by the Republican Party to go along with Donald Trump will haunt them for decades to come. And I believe the Republican Party has done itself great damage. Now, the alternative
but
view
you think
is,
there will be decades to come? That's breaking news also. I mean, I don't know.
Well, there's no question. Take a look at this legislation.
Toward, I don't know what. I mean, I think this is an administration that has us on a course toward end times. I really do. I think it's a scary time. The point is,
even if it's an end of time, we will still be here in several decades. I don't know about you, but I plan to be doing the Mark Thompson program.
Yeah, how about that?
When I do that. So when I say this to you, I want you to understand, I've never, ever, ever been as concerned about the fate of American democracy as I am today. I also believe that the impact on people across this country, particularly those on Medicaid and the SNAP program, are going to feel this unbelievably. And it is because there is no check on Donald Trump's power. I haven't been on since the Supreme Court rendered its most recent decisions. But what Donald Trump now has is a working majority, 6 to 3, that is going to propel him through his presidency. Now, some will ask, well, why do I say decades? Because what has been adopted and what I think will be adopted and signed into law by the president changes so many fundamental programs. Did you play? I don't listen every day, and I apologize for that. It's my mistake. But I hope you all heard the video done by George W. Bush and Barack Obama criticizing the destruction of AID. It was a bipartisan statement by 2 former presidents of the United States, which went nowhere in the news. Nowhere. You had to be aware.
George Bush, as you're aware, is one of the reasons that the USAID programs exist with the kind of aggressive outreach toward communities in Africa, for example, that need vaccines, that need food. And this is a shutting down of USAID. Again, it was United States Agency for International Development called USAID.
And that was a joint statement by Barack Obama and George Bush, a Democrat and a Republican, who between them were in the White House for 16 years. And Mark, did you cover it?
Did I cover their statement?
Yes.
Hell no, I didn't cover their statement. I talk about what's happening with their with these cuts every goddamn day. I don't need to cover a statement.
That. But
I got so much. I've got video coming out of my ears. What I mean, did I cover it?
No,
I covered it.
I'm asking about 2 former presidents of the United States.
Albert, get the
Democrat,
goddamn
the other
video for
Republican.
Rothman. He comes on this show. He's always talking about videos. Did you guys see? I don't mean to take control, but did you see the video of the?
Wait,
did you
did I
guys
ever
run
say-
the video of? It's outrageous.
Did I ever
Rothman.
say I didn't want to take control?
I want to put you in timeout.
Good day, sir.
God Almighty! I mean, I get the guy. I bring the guy on for his brain, and all he wants to do is throw to a video of Obama and Bush speaking. I get the point. It was a bipartisan message about USAID. I made the additional point about Bush.
I rest my case.
God, I just don't get it.
Why are you yelling?
What is it with this guy? We have him on every week.
Why are you yelling?
All right. You're saying something very important amidst all of the rest of this, and I don't know why you're losing your crap and yelling at me. Now, here is the story.
Did I raise my voice at the master of this program? Of course not.
They started cutting programs right away when this administration took hold. And USAID, and you know this, makes up so little of the budget of this country. The spend associated with USAID, with research and outreach, I should say, to these completely underserved economies across the world, it's minuscule, isn't it, John?
It is, but the impact is profound. And the reason why I used it as an example, Mark, is because there has been very little bipartisan criticism of what Donald Trump is doing. We have a few examples, and this is one which, to me, because of my affection and reverence for the American presidency, to see this kind of stand was important. But as you have pointed out, and I think you're right, the reason that we have such value in your program is because you keep pounding away on these points, and that's why I appear with you.
USAID was formed in 1961, wide range
By
of
John F.
programs,
Kennedy.
school lunches, children in Haiti, distributing HIV medication across sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, this portfolio of stuff that USAID does is so critical, and it costs nothing. That's why I mentioned the minuscule nature of the spend. And all over the world, people are astounded by this. I mean, you know, you look at soft power, that is sort of the road and belt initiative of the Chinese, for example, and brought here to America. We do development in countries where it's sort of a quid pro quo, you know, where we have a presence with our money and the spend is associated with that soft power. This isn't that. It really is the best of American money being used to lift up these communities in Africa.
The damage that Donald Trump is doing on so many levels is so profound that when I use the term decades, that's exactly the reason I use that term, Mark.
Well, I mean, the saddest thing is the lives destroyed by the dismantling of USAID. In other words, people will die. I mean, millions of people will die.
May I give you another example that's just appalling? The elimination of Radio Free Europe, the elimination of Radio Liberty, the elimination of all of those vehicles for communication, which have been so important in influencing the world. The damage Donald Trump is doing will extend over decades. And I repeat that, and I say it emphatically. And if the Republicans in the House go along with this bill, and when you read the bill, you understand. I loved Kim McAllister talking about the harpooning issue. It is so appalling. And by the way, if we were writing a book today of profiles in courage, Lisa Murkowsky would not be part of that number.
Well, there wouldn't be any GOP senator at all on. Maybe you consider Rand Paul, Susan Collins. I don't know. I mean,
no, Susan Collins is a great disappointment. Look what she's done.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. It's an abdication of responsibility. And that's why, if I may go back and say this again, the Republican Party is going to be hung with this positioning for decades to come.
I don't know who's going to hang them. I mean,
the American people.
Really, the American people. The American people brought him into power. I don't have any faith in the American people. You and I are completely on opposite sides.
I know you don't.
Yeah,
but I do. I have to. Otherwise, what hope is there, Mark?
I have people. I mean, people who listen to your podcast. I've got like those sorts of people. I have faith in them. But I think honestly, we're outnumbered. And I also have to say,
I have about, according to the numbers I got this week, I have about 485,000 people who download my podcast every day. And
Albert,
I
I'd like
hope-
to see an audit on that. That is absolutely, if 457,000 people a day download your podcast. Albert, where are you, Albert? Commish, I want to see a complete audit of Rothman's numbers.
Albert, thank you.
All right.
And when you get that, feed them to Mark. But that's the point, Mark.
Go ahead. Anyway,
People-
a lot of people
are-
listen is your point.
People are listening. People do care, and we have to keep pounding home the point. We have a midterm election in just a year and a few months, and we've got to be ready for it.
This is the kind of person who gives me the optimism, not you, Rothman. I disagree, John. It won't last decades. The world moves a lot faster now, says Cassandra. And I think she may be right. I mean, the phenomenon that you're describing, which is associated with the vote, which is associated with the people standing up, they've had enough, they realize they have buyer's remorse, whatever it might be, MAGA Nation realize that they're being hit. It will happen at a pretty big, I think,
Well,
at a much greater rate. At a much greater rate. Yeah.
When I say decades, do you understand cutting Medicaid, which is happening now, and the SNAP program is going to affect the lives of millions of Americans? And that's why it will be decades. Because people have long memories when they are directly affected. And that is what is going to happen. And the Republicans, in a way, privately anyway, are expressing that fact in their discussions. They understand.
I think Brother Rothman is right about this, that the effects of this bill, these policies, this, quote, legislation, the cuts on these programs, that all will be felt for decades. I would agree with Brother Rothman on that. I think there's a sad phenomenon, just to step out of the movie for a second and ask you about it. And here's the sad phenomenon. It's that these people that you talk about, the American public at large, okay? I mean, MAGAs, the lefties, all of them put together. I think there's almost a religious zeal now about some political positions. And so they're given the hymnals by the Fox News channels of the world, of the siloed right-wing podcasters, those who don't listen to your show, but some guy who does a show like yours daily, but he's a heavy-duty right-winger, read Steve Bannon, someone like that. And people are so wedded to those positions on the right now that they, even as their own world, because this is what you made me think of it when you talked about when they realize that their own world is coming down on them as a result of these policies from the GOP. If they know that the libs are getting owned because all of their EV credits are going away, all of the wind and solar is going away because now there are no credits for alternative energy. If they know that the libs are getting owned, there's a certain delight that they cherish in that. And I wonder, John, if you can get them off of that kind of thinking. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
No, you're just affirming my point. As long as you have a bully like Donald Trump in the White House who wields his power as effectively as he is wielding that power, we are going to continue to suffer under this situation. Well, let me tell you, if anybody had told me that there would be an Alcatraz in Florida set up to pen in and hold people without trial, and talking about speedy deportations and all the rest. You know, I always remember when Abe Ribicoff, the late senator from Connecticut, stood before the Democratic Convention of 1968 and talked about Gestapo tactics in the streets of Chicago. What we are seeing now, and I'd never draw an analogy with Nazi Germany, ever, but what you're seeing is that kind of tactic, bullying, abusing power, and there's no check on it. Do you understand? That's what is appalling to me. There must be a check on it. Look, you can see now the image, which Albert is putting up right now, of Donald Trump looking over this. Do you know what's going to happen? It's Florida. It's the high season of heat, and look what he's doing. And where is the outrage? You know, even if these people were guilty of something, and we don't know that they're all guilty. We don't know that any of them are guilty. This is inhumane. And there is something in our law that is clear and precise about doing something so inhumane.
Alligator Alcatraz. Can you imagine calling that in the Everglades? By the way, Mark, I know you've been to the Everglades, so have I. I wouldn't want to be there in the middle of a hot summer. I would want to be there with all the mosquitoes and all the rest. This is inhumane treatment, unjust punishment, and there is no justification for it. And we need to stand up and say so. And
many of these people were picked up at the courthouse as they were there at the appointed time for their immigration trials, for the continued legal process that they go through to seek asylum. These aren't criminals. As I said, 8%, based on statistics, 8% have criminal histories. So 92% are without any kind of criminal history, except for the fact that we've now made being in this country, having crossed the border without any kind of formal asylum process begun, illegal, which, I mean, it was always illegal, but it's a misdemeanor. It's not a, this is not, they're not worthy of a kind of Alcatraz treatment. And I'll say this, Alcatraz, say what you will about it, but it was a federal prison. People actually went through due process before they ended up there. They went through a trial. They went through a jury trial. They, again, they were offered appeals. These people are offered none of that.
Mark, you and I agree completely. Now the question that our listeners have to ask themselves is, where is the outrage? Where are the Republicans? And I say this very sincerely. Where are the Republicans who theoretically believe in liberty and justice for all and due process and not cruel and inhuman punishment? This is shocking.
Yeah, well, as we said, the Republicans are exactly where they've always been, now completely in the thrall of this leader, Donald Trump. I thought you just might be of interest, this might be of interest to you. There was a provision in the Senate bill, which, again, there's a bigger spend in the Senate bill, and maybe you can give us a second on the
$3 trillion increase in national debt.
Now, what does that mean, John? Maybe you just speak to that.
It means that our children and, God willing, grandchildren are going to pay a huge price. And the American taxpayer is going to pay a price because the interest on the debt grows. And who pays it? We do.
So just like the interest on a credit card, you begin paying on those trillions and trillions, and the interest is really all you can take a chunk of. So the principle, if you want to think of it that way, is never really diminished, because
you're absolutely right.
You're swamped in debt.
And where are these Republicans? For heaven's sake, they're the ones who didn't want to raise the national debt limit, and they're doing it. These are the ones who keep talking about our children and grandchildren being put in debt. And what are they doing? They're doing it. And the idea that this administration is putting forward, that this is all for the good of the country, that's why when I said to you that the Republicans will be held accountable for this. And just as after the Hoover years, it took the Republicans 20 years to get back in the White House, I believe these Republicans of this generation are going to face the same kind of kickback. In the meantime, we are the ones that have to battle. We are the ones who are going to pay the price, and we are the ones who have to speak out. May I just say, I have some listeners who are pro-Trump and who email me or fax me directly about the question of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. They embrace what Donald Trump is doing. They believe that what Donald Trump is doing is exactly the right thing. And they too will have to fess up eventually. And I think this is an unmitigated disaster, and we'll be covering it. We'll see what happens tonight, tomorrow, whether or not this big, beautiful bill is signed and what the implications are. Do you understand?
Here's one for you. Randy says Trump's going to solve the interest problem by firing Powell and lowering the interest rates to 1%. I think Trump on the economy is a train wreck, but he can't technically fire Powell, can he?
Yes, he can. And he has threatened to do so. What's important is that he is now putting forward privately names of people to succeed Powell. And that's unprecedented.
Show me the video, if you would, Commish. Show me the video of Jerome Powell being asked about the interest rates and his response, which relates to the nature of inflation and the threat that the inflationary spiral will be fed by tariffs. And it's that reason that the prescribed or anticipated interest rate drop was backburnered because he felt that the inflationary tendencies that would all be enabled by these tariffs, that those tendencies would likely only be fueled by making the price of money cheaper. So he didn't want to lower it. Here is Jerome Powell. Commissioner,
there's an ad that just played on the video. Give me.
I was stalling to give the commish time to get the video, and I thought I did a beautiful job stalling.
Magnificent, a magnificent
job.
job.
That's a look. You young people, that's how it's done. But apparently, there's an ad playing because it's an embedded video. I hate these embedded videos. All right, we'll have it for you. It's Jerome Powell speaking essentially about what I had.
Can I throw in a word about foreign policy?
Yeah, let's watch this real quick, pal, and then we'll let you hear it. Go ahead.
Would the Fed have cut
That's right. Could the Fed have cut more?
more by now if it weren't for the tariffs?
I think that's right. In effect, we went on hold when we saw the size of the tariffs, and essentially all inflation forecasts for the United States went up materially as a consequence of the tariffs. So we didn't overreact. In fact, we didn't react at all. We're simply taking some time. As long as the U.S. economy is in solid shape, we think the prudent thing to do is to wait and learn more and see what those effects might be. And again, they haven't really shown up. For now, we're waiting.
So there it is. Basically, he's saying, hey, Trump created this problem with the tariffs, and because they've fed this problem with inflation, we really can't lower the rates, even as Trump beats that drum. So there you have it.
And please notice the inconsistency. The other day, Trump announced he was breaking off the talks with Canada. Then he announces he's going to renew them. And the point is, it keeps everyone unsteady and gives Trump even greater leeway.
I thought, John, I have to just ask you, because you are really good on this stuff, better than I am, I think. And I'd always thought that the chair is independent. The president just can't come in and fire the Fed chair. He could fire him with cause.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, that's the only, but so that's the way he'd fire him.
Yeah, Trump
but he can't just fire him because he doesn't like him.
No, but Trump will come up with cause. But maybe he won't have to do it. We're talking about the fact that if you nominate a potential successor before a person's term expires, then already the attention shifts to the potential successor, who would then contradict the current chair. There are all sorts of ways of doing this politically, which Donald Trump seems to want to do. I do want to say a quick word on the situation in foreign policy, and that has to do with what happened with Iran. The president of the United States used a term, obliterate. We now know from independent sources that Iran's nuclear capability was not obliterated, it was set back. And yet the White House doubles down on this. And one of the things that bothers me is you want accuracy when you have the president of the United States speaking, because that's where people get their information. People want to believe the president, at least traditionally. And so the situation with Iran is hardly over. And you may have heard we're on massive nationwide alert over the July 4th holiday because of the potential for some sort of an attack. God knows what that means, how it would be implemented. But the point is, there is still a real concern about Iran and its nuclear capability.
I know that there can be a lot these days in the way of violence and the stochastic violence. You get these one-off lone wolves, these crazy guys with a gun, with a grudge. I wonder if there would be an emboldened terrorist cell along the lines of what you're hinting at, doing at the behest of Iran some kind of damage to 4th of July activities. I see Iran as cowed right now by the West. I don't see them as beginning that, but that might be my naivete. You really know this region well. You think
I don't think anybody knows it that well, Mark. I'm simply suggesting to you, it may not have to be the Iranian government. It may be cells that have been set up. There are a whole series of things we could talk about for hours relative to this kind of situation. But the nation will be on alert this 4th of July weekend. And I think that is what should concern us all. I, by the way, will have the pleasure of emceeing the Golden Gate Park Band concert at the bandstand
What?
Friday. This Friday, this is my commercial. This Friday, beginning at 1 o'clock. It's about
their new hoax.
Okay. Yeah, John. All
well,
right.
this is no hoax. This is real.
The only reason I'm here is because you are a friend.
Yes. Thank you, Elon. That's exactly right.
By the way, you didn't mention the new party to be launched by Elon Musk.
Oh, all right, John.
Remember
Go
the
ahead. You can
last
finish.
multimillionaire who tried to launch a new party?
That was Ross Perot, I think, wasn't it?
You got it.
Yeah.
Give him an A. He did it.
Yeah. John,
and I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see
yes,
this week.
I'm glad I could do a rant on John during our conversation.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Glad I could open up a can of whoop-a on Rothman as he comes through and starts barking about videos that he wants run. It's outrageous, Albert.
Well, may I
you need
say,
to have,
I
you know
wish-
what?
I wish-
You need to have a conversation with Rothman, Albert, and because my conversations are not working. He comes on this show and he just starts barking about stuff. But you guys see this? Maybe Albert can run it right now. It's crazy. Rothman, the voice of San Francisco. You can find him at thevoicesf.org. Listen to his podcast. He is a genius. He really is. I'm not just saying that. He's a brilliant man, a great student of history, a great student of government. We line up on other sides of things, I think, because I'm a bit more cynical maybe on certain issues, but we are brothers. It's like a Thanksgiving food fight. We enjoy it every week. And I love that you let me chase you around the schoolyard the way I do, and you do it with good humor.
I wouldn't have it any other way, and I can tell you our listeners feel precisely the same way.
So again, July 4th, the wonderful John Rothman MCs. What band is it?
The Golden Gate Park Band at the bandstand in Golden Gate Park.
That's
The
pretty damn
concert
impressive.
Begins at 1 o'clock. It'll be over by about 2:30, and there's patriotic music and great joy to be spread across the land on this, our nation's birthday.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. That John Philip Sousa stuff?
Absolutely.
Bum, 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 bum.
By the way,
That's the-
I posted on my own website, Gene Burns, our late beloved colleague, doing a brief cut of him on the Declaration of Independence. And I know you won't be here on Independence Day, but Albert, if you can dig up that.
Oh
little
my
clip.
God! Again with the geez. I mean, who is this guy? I just
You do not know what you are talking about.
I am telling
You just
don't get it, do you? You don't.
You don't.
It's unbelievable. Bravo for John, says Chaplain Fred. Get out of here, Rothman. Have a great holiday weekend.
Thanks,
We'll
you
talk
too.
next
Have a
week.
nice vacation,
John
Mark.
Rothman. Yeah, love it. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is it with Rothman? He comes on regularly, Albert, and then he starts barking about videos. Then I brush him back. Like a good major league pitcher, I brush him back, Albert.
You need to be nicer.
here is a situation.
No, I think just the opposite. I need to be more stern. I need to be more stern. It's tough love, Kim. It's tough
No.
love. That's what I need.
I'm going to put both of you in timeout.
No, it is absolutely outrageous the way he comes on here.
Seriously? What the
I'm telling you. You know I'm right, Commish. You know I'm right.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
Both of you are
Exactly.
going on the bench. The attitude was just crazy during that segment.
I love it when you're angry.
I am really. We work hard on this show, and then he comes in here and throws these Molotov cocktails, wanting to. Can you have this video? Can you have that video? I mean, listen. You bring your own videos from now on, Rothman. My people, we don't go, shagging videos like fly balls at batting practice to try to get videos that you demand. It's outrageous.
Boys, I'm disappointed in both of you.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's take a moment. We've got a great mind coming. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Share it, kid. Share it across social media, wherever you are most listened to in your world. Try to share a segment, share some thoughts, share some of the magic of this show as we grow this audience. We really do appreciate it. Costs you nothing to share the show, and it also costs you nothing to smash the like button like a boss.
with your iron rod.
Yeah, there you go. Our next guest is someone who I think, is one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world. And you know that just because he is in demand across the English-speaking world. From London taxis, you'll hear him on BBC Radio there, to New York on Fox News Channel, on News Nation, to Los Angeles, to San Francisco, and all the way to Australia and New Zealand. He is a wondrous mind, and he deconstructs some of these complex legal issues so very well. He's the former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney in Southern California, David Katz.
Good
Hello,
to be
sir.
with you.
Let me start with something that's not related to Trump, not related to government. It's the Sean Combs jury verdict. And I wonder if you can, it seems like, again, this is my lay reading of everything. Seems as though they let him skate on the really heavy stuff, which was the RICO stuff, the kind of criminal crime syndicate associated with the sex stuff. And they've gotten him on the prostitution and the, what is that, the Mann Act, where you're bringing a prostitute across state lines type thing, which is, these are the lesser charges. I'm not saying it's a day at the beach, but they're lesser charges.
Well, I think that the case really was overblown and overcharged. And we talked about that when it was brought. And I think it was fairly controversial because people had seen that video clip of him at the hotel in Los Angeles where he was beating and kicking Cassie Ventura. And that was terrible. But he was not actually being prosecuted for that. That was supposedly a prior bad act that was uncharged in the case. And the idea was that it would give you some perspective that he did, in fact, use force and intimidation against those women, and not his defense that it was consensual. I thought that that was overly prejudicial. I thought just about anybody would be convicted of anything if their trial began with that tape being played as a prior bad act of theirs. And this might not have been his worst moment in life, but the law is concerned about this idea that they play the worst moment in your life for the jury and then say, well, keep that out of your mind except for these limited purposes. Anyway, we don't need to tussle with that issue because Diddy was acquitted of the most serious charges. And that's not something that's supposed to happen to federal prosecutors. When you say this case has no political dimension, this was a case that was green-lighted, not by Kash Patel, not by Bondi, not by Trump. This was the Biden administration. This was Merrick Garland and their presidentially appointed and confirmed United States attorney, who thought this was the most worthwhile use of their prosecutorial resources. Now, this Cassie Ventura had already sued in civil court before the federal prosecution. She had already won a $20 million settlement paid to her the next day. And I know that what she went through, I'm sure, was traumatizing. And a lot of people are probably throwing eggs and tomatoes at the screen right now. But, you know, we have certain prosecutorial priorities. Was this really the case, this tabloid type case, this, you know, case that was not going to run on the front page of the Washington Post, but this was a story that would run on the front page of the National Enquirer back in the day? One of the lawyers who was sort of associated with the defense taking, you know, pot shots at the fact that there were 7 female prosecutors on this case. This case was worthy of 7 prosecutors. Said that, you know, these ladies were in search of a cause and not a case. And I think it came that way to a lot of people. And I don't mean to be overly controversial, but I want to mention something where you say it had nothing to do with politics. Apparently, some of the strongest Trump voters were women who were concerned about their kids, their children, male children, and their male siblings. Now, not that this was somebody being railroaded, but this idea that, you know, you're going around, he was charged with a life sentence, okay? This wasn't just the normal Mann Act jail time mark that he was looking at. That's what he's facing right now. That's why I think he's going to get bail later today. And we talked about this, Kim and I talked about this. And I know that there's not natural sympathy for somebody who's charged with something like what Diddy is charged with. But I thought that he should have gotten bail. And I explained how difficult it is to prepare a complex criminal case. And this one had a huge amount of documents when you're sitting in prison. The hours are very restricted. The access to electronic media that you need to understand a case that is based on a lot of electronic media against you is very daunting. when you're in prison. There's visiting hours. They close the prisons. They do everything else. And they would not give him. The government fought him. These 8 prosecutors fought him tooth and nail that he not be in his mansion with paid security guards like former FBI agents who would make sure that he abided by the rules, with all of his electronic media monitored so that he couldn't intimidate or do anything he wasn't supposed to do. But they wouldn't let him stay in his own house with tremendous security to fight these charges. Fighting under these daunting circumstances, Mark, he was acquitted of all the major charges. Acquitted means all 12 jurors, all his peers from all walks of life, okay? None of the 12 could conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that he was a racketeer. And I tell you, every time they bring one of these racketeering cases, which is not against a real racketeer, I'm going to get on your show and say this is not a real racketeer. The people down in Atlanta, as bad as they were, find me the 11,000 votes, all the shenanigans that they did, that was not a racketeering conspiracy, and it started to have all these problems in state court. This was not a righteous racketeering conspiracy. This was somebody who committed the acts that he was charged with, and they should have proceeded on the acts that he was charged with. Anyway, just the last thing about the Mann Act. The Mann Act is its own way notorious, and it's not just notorious and disfavored, but against black musicians. I forget the famous black musician in the Midwest who hired some young woman to travel with the band, and he wanted her to travel with the band and sing, but he also wanted to have sex with her, and then she got mad at him and said that he also wanted her to have sex with him. And I forget who it was. Was it Chuck Berry? I don't want to defame anybody.
Chuck Berry did a year's time. You're right. That's what that was, I think. I don't know if it was, it was Chuck Berry. I'm just looking at it now. Targeting black
He
was convicted in 1959 for transporting an underage girl across state lines. And he did a year, I think.
If I sing my favorite Chuck Berry songs, I'll get you demonetized, so I won't. But, this was the notoriety of the Mann Act, and that's all they ended up with Diddy. People can wring their hands and say they struck a mighty blow for justice, but when the jury of his peers, New York City, all taking a look at this, him in detention, having to defend himself from pretrial detention, they found him 12-0, not guilty on all 3 major charges.
Unreal. Really well described. And these are things that you have described along the way to us. As we've talked about the Diddy trial and the fact that they didn't let him, even though he wasn't a flight risk, go back to his home. I mean, these conditions he was under for all this time, they were pretty rough. I mean, this guy has paid a price already on some level. What do you think will likely be the penalty ultimately handed down?
Well, he's got time served since September, so he's got about 10 months, 9 to 10 months of credit right now. If he gets released on bail, I think there'll be 2 possibilities. One is that he'll get time served and heavy fines, payment of restitution, that sort of thing. He's got a fabulous fortune. And so any kind of monetary sanction against him, can be paid. And he'll have a felony record, but I don't think it's going to really affect his life very much. Some people,
I just want to say something, not to interrupt, David, but I'm seeing in the chat, you're not saying Diddy's a good guy. You're not saying, people are saying.
I don't even like his music. I'm a Fuddy Duddy who doesn't even like his music.
Your point simply is within the legal lines of the law, he was overcharged, and then you're making a series of additional points that way.
I'm a more LA Philharmonic and Disney Hall kind of music taste, but and I don't like the persona that he generates either. I'll infuriate everybody. He kind of hits me as like an African American Trump. He seems like a bully, a guy who throws his weight around. We don't prosecute people in America because they have a terrible public image. We prosecute people because there really is a priority to make that kind of case. When they're sending 8 prosecutors and all those FBI agents after Diddy, the raid of his house out here was one that will live in infamy. They apparently go in there with Bearcats and every kind of military thing you can imagine. And a lot of people look at it and say, wow, this Bel Air billionaire, he sure got his. That's not America, that a Bel Air billionaire gets his. A person who's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and worthy of prosecution, that's who get his or hers in America. And as I said before, Merrick Garland green-lighted this prosecution. People who say he was sure slow to get on Trump, he was sure fast to get on this case, and so is his FBI, and so is his Department of Justice. They thought this was a huge priority in the Southern District of New York, and now they really came up. I mean, to prosecute somebody and have them found not guilty in a super high-profile case like this, I mean, you can name on one hand where all the major charges, Mark, all went down to prosecute him, to convict him of the Mann Act, to convict him of what Chuck Berry did, 50 years ago. And you just say Chuck Berry got, what, a year or two in that case. So you think, okay, so if he got a year in this case, that's a couple of months. I think that he would maybe go to a halfway house, a home detention center or something like that. And his lawyers are going to say he served really hard time. All the, it's not, those pretrial detention places are terrible. They're not as terrible.
Those lawyers wouldn't be wrong. Barry says, Katz question, can Trump pardon Diddy for an exchange of money?
No incentive now. No incentive.
Yeah.
I think supposedly Diddy's lawyers were talking to Trump, trying to figure out, the price for that swindler down in the South, whatever he was. 300,000 wasn't enough. Mama came up with $1 million. All of a sudden, he'd been the victim of the weaponized Department of Justice, and Trump, in my opinion, took a bribe, sold that pardon for $1 million, which the U.S. Supreme Court said because that's an official act. That's not even, as those facts, if those facts were true, that's not even a crime. So Diddy would have been in the multi-millions of dollars trying to buy his pardon from Trump, but now he's disincentivized, right? Because he's just looking at the Mann Act for Cassie Ventura, and there's another victim named Jane who testified. So there'd be
why spend the money since it's been downgraded that way, since the verdict came in that way. I want to quickly pivot you to the capitulation of CBS, Paramount over the 60 Minutes case. They were sued by the president at that time of the 60 Minutes airing. He wasn't the president, he was the candidate, and they did an interview with Kamala Harris. They also had offered an interview, obviously, with Trump, but he turned them down. And the claim was that they had edited this Kamala Harris interview to make it look more favorable toward her. He claimed damages, he claimed pain and suffering, all this sort of other thing. It was for billions of dollars originally. They settled for $16 million. Give me a thought on that, please.
Well, this is 60 Minutes. They've been on the air for 50 years consecutively. They're the most watched news show. They may be what do you call them? Old media, but they're really the establishment. Maybe not so much for young people, but for people our generation. Mike Wallace came on. It was 60 Minutes. I know I had a case on 60 Minutes when I was an assistant U.S. attorney, and it was like such a big deal to be on 60 Minutes. Now, of course, the show doesn't have quite the reputation that it used to. Trump wouldn't go on during the campaign because he thought that the questioning would be so slanted to the left. Kamala Harris did go on, and then they had these little clips about it to try to get you interested. And somebody noticed that, wait a second, the broadcast version of it, the one you saw Sunday night, it had either clips that weren't in it, or there was some disparity between the promotion of the show clips and the show itself. So they sued, and they said that they'd been defamed by the editing, that they made Kamala Harris look better and more coherent than she really was. And in a word, the case was frivolous. It was nothing but a ridiculous lawsuit. And CBS's lawyers saw that way, that it was a shakedown, it was bullying, it was political retaliation from Trump, and they were going to fight it tooth and nail. Well, in the fullness of time, I guess, what's her name? Sherry Redstone. She's someone who stands to make an enormous amount of money if this merger goes through. And so before you know it, the board of CBS decided to settle this case. And so they've now paid Trump $16 million. We've been told that there's no connection between the approval of this merger by the FCC and the federal government, which is worth billions of dollars to CBS and to Ms. Redstone personally. We've been told that, of course, there's no connection whatsoever. Hopefully, the press will watch very carefully as this merger is approved or not approved. And what happens, the 16 million, Trump got he had this crazy doctor, and I think the doctor is now in Congress. I think he's one of those people who said Trump was fine no matter what. Trump was the healthiest person in America. Jackson, I think is his name.
Ronnie Jackson,
Dr. Jackson joined that lawsuit. They've now announced that neither Dr. Jackson or President Donald J. Trump is going to get any money in their pocket, but all their lawyers will be paid at their lawyers' very high, I imagine, hourly rates, and that the rest of the money will be given to the presidential library. It may be worth a trip to Trump's presidential library. While he's not a big reader himself, you can see whatever CBS's money bought. Nice furnishings or whatever.
I'm looking
And
for
of course,
a lot
the
of
plane,
gold is
the
what I'm
plane
figuring.
boss,
Yeah.
The plane boss. The
Yeah.
plane boss.
Oh, that's right. The Qatari plane.
The Qatari plane will be there somewhere near. If Trump's not flying it around as ex-president, it may be somewhere around the Trump presidential library. An utter fiasco. If the legacy media weren't looking bad already, this is a huge black eye. The head of CBS News, she had to quit. The person in charge of 60 Minutes, I think it's a he had to quit. And myself, even though my show was on there and I was very proud to have my show on there, I always thought CBS was a little bit overblown. You know, the whole way they present the music and the thing and all of that and that stuff. They also,
I mean, there's a presentational aspect to the show. I'll say that I think that 60 Minutes, you know, again, it's legacy media. It still has a lot of power. They're still viewed as generally objective. That may or may not be true, but I'm just saying that their rep is still pretty good. But what you just pointed out is the fundamental aspect of media, and American media needs to take stock of this, and people who look at American media need to stock of it. And that thing is that they are ultimately commercial endeavors. And so it's run by a board of directors. As you say, Sherry Redstone looks at 16 million. She goes, look, that's a rounding error compared to the money that we're going to make from this merger that we need Trump to approve. So why do we want to get into a thing with him? Just pay him this money.
If it was a bribe, worth paying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing that that's true. But that mom who cared about her son going to federal prison, where the judge decided was where he belonged after hearing all the facts and law in the case, it was worth it for her. It was worth $1 million not to have Sonny serve the time.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of commerce being done now on both sides, now with the American administration under Donald Trump, and also with the American media under everyone from Sherry Redstone to the Disney people who ran ABC and run ABC and cut that check. And now it's going to be CNN that could be in the blades. I have to leave you to go over to KFI Radio in Los Angeles, but I want to continue this conversation. Kim, would you be okay picking up? Because I really want to talk about the denaturalization thing that they are speaking about. I mean, what and the way in which American citizens, those with citizenship, are being targeted by the American government. And I'd love for Kim to continue that conversation with you. Before I leave, I want to just recognize a couple of people, and I'll tell you what, David, I'll take you out of this conversation for just a second, and Albert, you can cinch this up so that you can take this part out when you drop the video. But I just want to recognize Chaplain Fred. Hi, Mark, Kim, and Albert. Happy Hump Day. Kim does need a break from Mark's madness. I don't disagree. And Luis on the paleteros, the day laborers, the paleteros, they selling the, what is it, the kind of ice cream sort of thing, or the bacon-wrapped hot dog vendor dies at Alligator Auschwitz. Is it even going to be reported? Hashtag inevitable. Exactly. People will die. Total innocence, if you will die, and they'll die in darkness. And it's a tragedy on top of a tragedy. Maggie says, enjoy the show. I don't miss a day. These are all super chats. Thank you for the support, everyone. We're a crowd-funded show, so I appreciate it. Maggie says, enjoy the show. Don't miss a day. We are part of the silent majority who just want to support independent radio like The Mark Thompson Show. I'm an elder boomer, furious at all of this. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Maggie, for supporting the show. We will continue to be here for you. And John Rothmann gets this. Luis says, I want to have as much faith as you do in the American people, John, but where do I get the Kool-Aid, and does it come in 120 proof test? Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't have a lot of faith in the American people. But Ron Cook says, despite the Mark Thompson Show declining work ethic, we're taking off tomorrow, and a little pause for the cause, and wish my fellow therapy session participants a great 4th. Thank you, Ron Cook, for $20 super chat. Wow, that's super generous of you.
Yeah.
And Joy says, with a $10 super chat, just run this video for me, which is a reference to Rothmann coming on and going, you can put that video on. And Charlene finally says, Mark, you were coming across as way with a bunch of whys too defensive when you do not need to be. You were doing a fine job. Other people would have handled it differently with Rothmann. You need to rethink your reactions. My God.
What?
I've been called upon the carpet.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
She's cut me to the quick.
You cannot say you love your country.
I know. I'm sorry, Charlene. Well, I have a couple of days to reflect on it. And then this for David Katz as we get back into the conversation. Katz is right, says Zero
right.
Sum. That was in relation to, I think, the Diddy overcharging. So, Kim,
right.
I leave you with the great former
Thank
federal
you.
prosecutor, and thanks, everybody.
I'll take him. Bye.
Okay.
Mark off to KFI, and I bring back in David Katz. Hi, David Katz.
Hi, I was just going to say to Mark that he should have a great 4th, and I listen to him on KFI when I'm driving around.
Yeah, he's great. He's great here, and he's great on KFI as well. But he did want me to ask you about this denaturalization, and I am very shocked that it could possibly be legal for a take back, for us to strip someone of citizenship that we gave them or that they earned or that they naturally have a right to. Is that allowed? Because the Trump administration is saying that that's what they would like to do.
I was going to say, what legal authority is saying that's permissible? And you told me the Trump administration. So I don't think it's I think there were some old cases maybe for treason or something like that. There was some great old novel about that or something. But no, once you become a United States citizen, it's not revocable. So I don't think that that's the thing.
I think they're using it as a threat, threatening to strip U.S. citizens even of their nationality and deport them if they commit certain crimes, including some people who were born in the United States. And there is an expert on authoritarianism who studies such things. Her name is Ruth Ben-Ghiat, and hopefully I'm saying that right. But she says that some of the things that Trump is saying are really kind of hallmarks of authoritarianism. He said the homegrowns are next. And she says that he is aggressively prioritizing efforts to revoke the status of naturalized citizens who commit certain crimes. And this, she says, is pointing us down the wrong road.
I think that the people who are citizens, I really think that they're fine. I guess if I wanted to lampoon it and make a joke about something that happened, I guess it would go up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and Musk would ask for his stay, and the Supreme Court would say, no, that injunction was improperly issued. So Musk, you got to go to South Africa or wherever, and we'll get to your issue on the merits. Oh, your issue on the merits. We'll get to that in 2 years, but in the interim, we're not granting you the stay. I guess that would be the joke. And, they say that Musk may be hoisted on his own petard. I think not by losing his citizenship or being banished or thrown out of the country. But I think that they're going to, the trick will be to turn Doge against him. New Doge will now go and find that all the waste and corruption, guess what, was done by Musk. Was done by Starlink, was done by Tesla. And of course, then I imagine that to play out this kind of dystopian view, it will turn out that Musk and his minions have stolen so many trade secrets and other things from the federal computers that'll be his next stand, because they're really worried about that. Like major Wall Street companies have said that they're really worried that the competitive process is going to be skewed because Musk and his minions had what they call God-like view, which is where they looked into the records and all the things that normally block them didn't block them. So, I mean, the horrible is that they saw Coke's formula.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the plans of how some competitor is going to launch something in competition to Tesla or to Starlink, and that Musk and his group got access to things just like that. And, Kim, we told them at the time, that same judge in Washington, D.C., who had the January 6th case, one of those cases arrived in front of her, and she dawdled. She needed to think about it. And while she didn't issue a temporary injunction, that may have been exactly when Musk found out things from Treasury records, from people's tax records, found out trade secrets, found out how Starlink's competitors are going to try to do things that Starlink's doesn't like. So stay tuned to that one. But I don't think anyone, people with green cards, people who don't have citizenship, that's a big thing. And after a criminal conviction, there's often litigation whether that person should be deported or not. And so I thought that if Trump, certainly for those people who are against Trump and who do not have citizenship, there's always the fear that they'll trump up some charge. I can't imagine what U.S. attorney in America would do that. His personal lawyer in New Jersey just got picked by him to be the permanent U.S. attorney. She's never prosecuted a case in night court. She's never, as far as I know, she never prosecuted her own case in small claims court. Okay, she is as inept and unprepared for that job. So I can't imagine what U.S. attorneys around the country would do that. But the fear is that some of Trump's U.S. attorneys would basically cook up charges against people with the aim of just, getting them convicted of something. They'd be so scared, they'd roll over, plead guilty to something, some felony where they wouldn't have to go to prison. And then, aha, now you're a convicted felon. And I've seen that in cases, not from the Trump administration. I've seen that in cases where, in my view, they trumped up a charge just against a family member because the family member was going to be an alibi witness. And they wanted to say, oh, so Johnny was with you the night of October 30th. Well, you're a convicted felon. And so they would disbelieve the family member who was the alibi witness because they had a trumped up felony. And you might say, well, why would anybody agree to a trumped up felony? The fear of prisons. Our prisons are horrible places. We were just talking about where Diddy was. You look now at the confinement conditions of these people who are yanked off the streets in LA, the nannies. It's just horrible. And they call from these holding places, these private prisons. By the way, you might wonder, people aren't making loads and loads of money off of this human suffering. Yes, people are making billions of dollars off this human suffering. They're called the private prison industry, which gave all of this money to Trump so that Trump would win and Trump would spend all his money on the private prison industry. And there's this new bill that just got through the Senate is larded with money for the private prison industry. So while they take all this money from us taxpayers, they provide terrible services. They don't provide heat when it's freezing at night. People think, oh, it's the middle of summer. When you're out there in Adelanto in the high desert at night, it's colder than you can imagine. All those people are huddled together trying to stay warm, and they're in our custody. We've put them there. And on top of that, and now they have what they call alligator Auschwitz. And they're celebrating. They're selling like merch, right?
They're selling merch. And actually Trump yesterday came out in praise of the harsh conditions there and the temperatures, the sweltering temperatures there. He said, I couldn't care less. What?
Yeah. It's just, it's cruelty as, what Obama had hope and change. And this is cruelty and disdain.
You mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
America's most attractive DHS secretary. Yikes.
Yeah, on the outside, but not on the inside, because that's not an attractive person. You talk about cruel and unusual.
I'm not sure she was born the way she looks right now, by the way. I just want to throw that in. But anyway.
Yeah, it's all fake. You talk about, though, cruel and unusual punishment, right? A tenet in the Constitution that we don't do that to people. We've talked with you before about birthright citizenship. We just talked about stripping citizenship from people who are rightfully citizens of this country. The list goes on in the ways that the Trump administration is trashing the Constitution of the United States, which is America. As someone who has based his life's work on the laws and the rules of this country, I wonder if you can reflect for a moment as we head toward the 4th of July and celebrating America about what's happening in this country and how maybe we can reframe the 4th of July to be more empowering for us to move forward and fight against these things.
Well, the first federal government job that I had was, in the Carter administration in the summer of 1980 in an office that argued in front of the United States Supreme Court, the Solicitor General of the United States. As I say, I wasn't a permanent employee there. I was a summer law clerk. But, we went and sat in the U.S. Supreme Court, chamber, not chamber, but, in the courtroom there. And I had worked on a case, and it was argued, to the U.S. Supreme Court that summer while I was in Washington, D.C. And my grandmother was a longtime federal employee. And I just have this reverence for our country, a constitution. My father was an immigrant. So I check off every one of those boxes that, I love America. I get excited when they play the Star Spangled Banner. I just probably some people would think that I'm very old fashioned because I do buy a lot of American exceptionalism. When people talk about problems that we have in America, my first reaction is we ought to fix them. And then my second reaction is, why don't you talk about some of the worst problems in other countries? Because you do have to not only improve yourself, but it's also fair to compare yourself. And when I hear these comparisons, I think, well, who are they to? Maybe to some countries in Scandinavia, in Europe. I used to joke around that if I could have a trial in a European country like in Scandinavia or in some of the other, I'd rather have a trial there. But I'm teasing a little bit. That would be a day that I was frustrated with the rulings from some judge over here. So I think, moving to July 4th, I always spend July 4th in a small town with my wife and in a July 4th parade. I love everything about July 4th. And I guess in terms of our respect for the Constitution, we just didn't have, it wasn't so polarized. It seemed like there was about 95% of stuff that people could agree on.
Yeah.
And I do think that things got a little out of whack during some of the Democratic administrations, both federally and here in the state of California and the city of Los Angeles. But again, the idea is to ameliorate it. The idea is to improve it. The idea is to make this one better country and not just sort of go off to your own sides. And I'm so furious about this and so furious about that. So I'm saying this old homily that, people should work together, realize how much they have in common and not how much separates them. It's a pretty Republican town that we have the July 4th in. And my 5 brothers-in-law, I think I haven't seen them. I haven't gone into the voting booth with them, but I have a feeling that they vote Republican. But it doesn't mean that they buy into the whole agenda, Kim, of the Republican Party. I mean, a lot of it is about lower taxes and less regulation. And the Republicans have gone so far away from that. You look at the tariffs. The tariffs are a tax. They're a kind of huge regulation. Why Republicans are supporting Trump's crazy tariff policies, and even some of the things that he's doing for taxes, like he's going to knock this new bill if the House passes it too, which they probably will. They're going to raise the healthcare costs for all of us because as they're not paying for 10 million people on Medicaid, hospitals will close. All sorts of there'll be more people in the emergency rooms, more people making demands on the medical system, but they can't pay for it. The federal government won't be paying for it. Many states won't be paying for it. Guess what? You and I will be paying for it one way or another because our rates are going to go up. So all these things that the Republicans have rallied around Trump, I sure hope that they rethink them because they're not even many of them in their own economic self-interest.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, there's another case that came through this week, and it's the Brian Kohberger case where this man stood accused of killing 4 young college women in, I believe, Idaho. And this week he takes a plea deal and the death penalty is taken off the table and he'll serve 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. But the families of these women that were murdered are really upset. They're saying this isn't justice to them and they weren't consulted about it. And so there's discussion about, that families don't have to be consulted about these types of things. I'm wondering if you have any comments on this case.
Sure. I'm on News Nation a lot on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday afternoon. And there's some reporters on News Nation that they made like a mini career out of this case in Idaho, breathlessly reporting on all of the developments in it. A couple of things I don't understand about it with all of that. I don't know why they didn't just offer him that they wouldn't impose the death penalty earlier. The case is kicked around now for a couple of years. I think it's fair to say that he looked awfully guilty. To paraphrase OJ, if anyone was going around looking for the real killers, I think they found the real killer in Idaho. He looked so incredibly guilty, and everything seemed to point toward him, and it didn't point toward anybody else. And you can kind of figure out the motive there. So I don't know why they didn't make that deal where they wouldn't pursue the death penalty and he would plead guilty to killing. I think he had to plead guilty to killing all four, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that they passed a lot of victims' bills of rights and stuff. And so we have that in federal court, and the victim can address the court or submit a victim impact statement. And most of the state courts have gone that way too, that the victim can be heard at sentencing. And you see some of those emotional things where the family of the victim is there in court for the sentencing and the family of the accused is there. And sometimes they'll exchange words, they'll get heated. So that's kind of a right that they have. But at the end of the day, it is the prosecutor's decision. I don't know of any state where the prosecutor can really say, no, I am not accepting that deal. I mean, here in America, it's the prosecutor that prosecutes somebody. It's not the family of the victim. It's not the victim in a case where the person hasn't died. So, and I think that really is very short-sighted. I think a lot of victims, it happens in white collar cases too. They really want revenge. They don't want to let it go. And I get it. They've been hurt, and they want to be compensated. In a murder case, you can't bring the person back. In many of the white collar cases, the money is just gone. There's really no restitution to be gained. To me, this is not, I mean, it's interesting news in this case, but this has happened in many, many cases that people want the death penalty. One thing that was really interesting here was the Menendez brothers, where there was only one family member who was opposed to the brother's interests, and then he passed away. He was quite elderly. And so now we have a situation where all of the family members wanted the same disposition, basically, that they be eligible for parole. And I think pretty much all the family wants them to get parole and to be released. But that's unusual. And so you also have people want different things. There's 4 victims here. There's 4 families that were impacted. I'm not sure all of them can want him to get the death penalty. But he's not getting the death penalty. That will stay. There's nothing that they can do about it. The victims' families.
DeHageville wants to know, will he have to allocute?
Oh, well, that's he doesn't have to say anything at his sentencing, and normally we advise the client not to, not to dig a deeper hole, and especially not to, not guilty with an explanation. That's traffic court. If you're going to plead guilty, keep it short, so. In federal court, at least, there's a long factual basis that has to be provided. People interested in the criminal justice system, because what happened in state court, people would plead no contest. They could plead that, well, my lawyer said it was in my best interest to say that I'm guilty. And then they'd run right out in a high-profile case and hold a press conference and say, my dump truck lawyer, he didn't want to do the work. He didn't want to defend me. I'm as innocent as the day is long. This is all BS. And you can't do that in federal court. In federal court, under oath, you have to say what is the factual basis. And so, I went in the bank, I took out a gun, I told the teller, give me the money or I'll blow your head off. They gave me the money, I took the loot, I ran out of the bank. That's what you have. Something like that is your factual basis in federal court. But in many courts, you can still say, my lawyer told me this was a good idea. And you can basically assert your innocence even after you pleaded guilty, as a practical matter.
Last thing I'll ask you about is this Health and Human Services layoff case, where a judge now says that the layoffs were most likely unlawful and that they have to be stopped. And we've seen this with all the people the Trump administration has laid off or fired, that it goes through the courts. The judge will say, you can't fire these people. Then another judge says, yes, you can fire these people. We saw with the Supreme Court the recent ruling about that, courts aren't allowed to issue stays and this type of thing. So this ruling applies to terminated employees of 4 divisions of Health and Human Services, and that includes the CDC. And I wonder if these rulings make a difference if if there can't be stays, and if another judge is just going to come along, as we've seen, and say, yeah, you can lay them off, and if it's just delaying the inevitable.
Well, the nationwide injunctions, which is what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on, that courts should avoid granting, even though they believe on the merits, they should be granted. And even though the judge thinks that a nationwide injunction would help the situation because the statute, let's say, is illegal, so why should it be applied anywhere? The U.S. Supreme Court 6-3 has really discouraged that kind of equitable relief, and a lot of people like me think that this was a curing a problem that didn't exist, because there were ways to deal with runaway nationwide injunctions even before the U.S. Supreme Court got involved in this. But I don't think it's going to be a problem here, because let's say it's 1,000 people getting laid off at 4 different agencies in Washington, D.C. They can either form a class action, or a ruling from the judge in Washington, D.C. will cover them because they all work in Washington, D.C., or a ruling in Maryland will cover them all because they work in Bethesda, Maryland. So I don't think that's going to be a problem here. And I know the cases sort of are confusing to people, but there's 2 or 3 things that go into an injunction. One is the chance of winning on the merits, Kim. So if the judge thinks that and every employment contract is different, and how HHS hires people at the CDC may be different in terms of the contract. There may be an amount of time that they have to give notice. So if they have to give you 90 days notice and they only gave 30 days notice, that's a very easy case on the merits. And some of them will be very easy cases on the merits that the workers ought to win, the fired employees ought to win, and some may be more complicated. But once the judge decides that the merits favor the employees or the laid off workers, let's say at the CDC, then you have a question of irreparable harm. This one I have not understood in the cases. All I can think is this is a political difference, and the right-wing judges just don't get it politically. Because I think when you look at it logically, left or right, the irreparable harm will usually be with the worker, the employee. If the employee is let go right now, it's so obvious what the disruptions are. They can't pay their mortgage. How are they ever going to get the job back if they're right? All those kinds of things. What's the irreparable harm to the government? If the government has to pay their salary and keep them on for 2 or 3 more months. So I don't understand why this, and generally speaking, the stays have been in favor of the workers. They have been in favor of the plaintiffs, saying that the irreparable harm is letting the people go, so we'll keep them in place. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I want to play Stump the Cats. Can
Okay.
we do that? Okay.
Give me some case. They don't know anything about. No, this is fun.
It's my favorite. So,
when I was in the DA's office one summer, the DA's office in Brooklyn, New York, that was when I was a first-year law student. I got a paying job in the summer after my first year of law school, and literally there'd be a huge stack of files. It was Stump the Cats. And you start, what's the people's opinion on People v. Smith? Well, Your Honor, this is a case that you'd open up the file. There's a case that involves, and you try to figure, oh my God, did anybody make any notes? And you argue the case as you were first reading it. So let's Stump the Cats.
Stump the Cats. This is a story about this ICE app. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it allows users to report ICE sightings in their community. So if you saw ICE on a certain corner, you would go into this app and say, ICE is here, at such and such intersection, beware. The ICE sightings app is being decried by Trump and his company of administration folks, that they're going to go after people who promote this as somehow being illegal. It's called ICE Block, so now they're going to come after me as well for promoting it, apparently. But it allows users to report sightings of immigration and customs enforcement in communities to protect bystanders from physical confrontations. And there are some Southern California communities who are publicizing that this is available, and CNN had published that this is available, and now the Trump administration is saying they're legally coming after anyone who promotes this ICE Block app. And I'm wondering if they have a legal leg to stand on, if it's legal to say, hey, there's this app out here, even if it conflicts with their law enforcement policy. is there a case there?
Well, first of all, Kim, if they come after you, remember about Katz and Associates' podcaster discount.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you're my first phone call. Absolutely.
And your first phone call. Yes, absolutely free. So, they'd have to show something more. I mean, it's obviously a First Amendment right to engage in that activity. The public has a right to know. What they would have to have is the use of that app plus. Okay, so two people are using that app to get people there to obstruct ICE, right? And so they not only are using that app, but they're also telling somebody, which the government could prove hypothetically, interfere with it. Send somebody down there who looks like they're armed or has armor on because they're going to fight with ICE and they're going to obstruct that arrest. So it's more than just using the app. It would be using the app as part of, it's lawful so far. Just like you can use the telephone, that's lawful. You can tell your friend on the telephone, hey, ICE is at such and such a place. But if you then go on to do something much more than that, which would be the factual predicate for the supposed crime, you'd be in trouble. But people should not be intimidated by all that talk and all that bullying. You were talking about authoritarian countries, and the way that they do it in a lot of them, like Hungary and Turkey, is that you flinch before you act. And people shouldn't do it. Exercise your rights. This is America. And that's one thing we can do for July 4th, all within the law. Exercise our rights and not stand up to things. These demonstrations the other day that brought out more than 5 million people. This was a huge event. People should realize what a huge event this was. People look back on the 60s, they say, wow, those were the time of the big demonstrations. There was no demonstration in the 60s that was bigger than the one that we just had against Trump and against ICE and against his lawlessness. Think about it. We're the age of protest. 2025 is the year of, will be known years from now as the millions and millions of people who stood up to Trump and said, you can't bully us, and we have rights in this country. And this bill, though, was a shock yesterday. The total cruelty, the lengths that they'll go to give the billionaires and the huge corporations a break and screw over 10 million people. I've heard that Trump's propagandists are trying to blame it on the Democrats. The Democrats had nothing to do with it. The Republicans just did solely with Republican votes. You poor people who voted for Trump, you poor MAGA followers, you're the ones who are going to get hurt by this. It's so, it's like a noblesse oblige already. It's just not going to hurt me, but I'm big-hearted. I see what's going to happen. I can feel the people waiting at the waiting rooms for services who aren't going to get services, the people who are going to be in pain and suffering and aren't going to get any relief. And it's all because the Republicans cut you back because they preferred to give a huge break. And the people are so rich, the breaks that they're getting, the billionaires are getting, millions and millions of dollars of tax relief that could have gone to rural hospitals, that could have gone to USAID. It's just
exactly what this is a redistribution of wealth from the poorest Americans to the billionaires. And you look at the people. I was reading a story out of Kentucky with a senator talking about the hospitals there and how they already have a lack of hospitals and the hospitals will be closing. And you'll have these poor people that won't have anywhere to go in an emergency. And I'm thinking many of them in these red states probably voted for Trump. And it's this case of voting against your own best interests. And I don't know why people do this. We warned everyone. We said he's coming after money for, he's going to redistribute the wealth to the richest Americans. He's coming after everyone. Over and over again, the warnings came and no one listened.
Well, a lot of people listened, but 1% more of the people voted for Trump this time than Kamala Harris. But you do wonder, last time, you do wonder who is the biggest clown in the Republican Senate. And I think Murkowski's leading the pack at the moment because she agonized before she sold out the country and sold out all the people of her own state of Alaska. And you wonder what we're going to do about it. Are we going to not go on cruises to Alaska? People in California, Oregon, and Washington probably have huge support for Alaska by paying for these cruises and other things like that. I can tell you this, if you can get to Patagonia in South America It's so much more beautiful. The glaciers are there, the glaciers there, the Andes. It's fantastic. So you're not losing anything by boycotting Alaska. But you think, what else are you supposed to do when, you know, she's from this tiny, huge state geographically, this tiny population state. And she knows very well this bill is terrible. And she says, well, the House will cure it. That's just beyond belief. I voted for something I don't believe in. I agonized, but we'll send it with the House and they'll cure it. They're even further to the right in the House. So you wonder, what are we supposed to do? Do nothing? Do nothing? Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not going on a cruise to Alaska anytime, and I don't know what I can boycott from Alaska. But after I get off the show with you, I got a lot of work to do. But this evening, I want to figure out what can I not buy from Alaska, because I've had it. This is the only way that we can vote. We millions and millions of people down here in California who get screwed by these senators from these tiny population states.
Yeah. I mean, you could make the argument, well, the people of Alaska elected her to, you know, serve their best interests, to represent them in the Senate. And so that is who her obligation is to. Her obligation is not to the rest of America. But I think that's really missing the big picture when she knows how dangerous this is for everyone else.
She can help a few of them, but that doesn't mean California has to help a few of them. I mean, boycotts are one of the most effective things that you can do. You know, like they boycotted Tesla cars. Yeah. Now that's another fraught one where Musk and Tesla stand at the moment. But Kim, you have a wonderful 4th.
You too, David Katz. Thank you for the extended interview. I appreciate it.
Have you seen Pat Thurston recently?
I have not seen her recently. No, not since the last time she was on with us.
Well, let's send her a happy July 4th. And
we'll do it.
You know, people may not know this, but you, me, and Pat Thurston, you and I, and your producer, I think, was it the same producer or a different producer? We've been together for over 6 years. First on that show on KGO, and now with Mark. But you and I have been together for over 6 years.
Yeah,
that was a long time. Jason Abileta. Jason Abileta. Producer,
and you still look the same. You haven't aged a day, Kim. And you gotta let us talk about baseball. What do you think about your Giants are doing well, but not in the last 10 days or so, right?
Oh, that's an Albert question.
No,
yeah, for sure.
What happened the last 2 weeks? You were neck and neck with the Dodgers.
Yeah, we traded we were like a game and a half out, and we got Rafi Devers, and we just fell off the cliff. So I don't know what's going on.
It's not so, but you know, that's the vagaries of fate. You know, we were on with Jim Avila the other day for the get together. I think you helped do the get together, right? Put that all together, Albert.
Yeah, I was in there for a couple minutes, but yeah.
And he's still mad at me because I was a Giants fan and because Marichal hit whoever he hit with that pitch. Who did Marichal? He hit him with the bat. He hit him with the bat.
He hit someone with the bat.
Roseboro called for, I guess, a pitch that was near Marichal's head. Marichal was batting in the days when pitchers batted. He turned around and clunked Roseboro over the head, and Avila won't let it go. But I was a Giants fan. What are you going to do? I wasn't in support of him clunking him over the head, but I'm a Giants fan.
I mean, that's a legal case in its own, right? If that would happen in these days.
I represented a player who they not only threw him out of the game, but they prosecuted him for assault. Yeah, I represented a player in the Midwest. It all came out okay. So anyways, great to be with you. Great to
be with you. Happy 4th of July. Thanks for joining us, David Katz.
Okay, take care.
Bye. David Katz coming on a Wednesday on the Mark Thompson Show. Can you believe the show is over already? We send you off into the 4th of July holiday weekend with good wishes for celebrations with your family and thinking good thoughts for the future of America. You can pull a little of the John Rothmann hopefulness out of the show to carry with you. The After Party Live is next. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I'll put the link in the chat. And thank you for being here. Albert, thank you for all the videos and everything else today. We appreciate it.
Keeping all my four-legged friends, all my thoughts and prayers, because it's a wartime on July 4th for our poor dogs.
For the dogs. So. Yeah, absolutely. It's a rough time. Well, happy 4th of July, everyone. And please be safe out there. And as Shadow Stevens says, oh, I didn't time it out right. Thank you and goodbye, everybody.
Stevens
there he is.
Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.
All the time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.